welcome to another edition of Aloud with Mary. Today I'm continuing to read Joshua Genz's book, A Different Perspective. Today we're starting the chapter entitled Contact. Sapientus slowly made his way through the undergrowth, cutting vines with his poor excuse for a knife, and made his way into a clearing from where there were scorch marks all across the earth, which led into a small pathway further into the jungle. Whatever had made these marks, Sapientus thought, is not of this world. The priest continued on the trail of burnt leaves and scorched earth. The fangs had not yet pierced the skin of the druid's neck before the weight of the hellhound was lifted off the druid. Pieces of flesh had been ripped from the druid's bicep and calf. The man opened his eyes and could only see the gray sky above him. He sat up to see where his attacker had gone and found the devil dog sprawled out on the northern side of the clearing, completely dazed. Baffled by what could have done this, the druid craned his neck over to the right and saw a man caked with blood on his hands and clothes. His arms raised as if to shield himself in a brawl and eyes closed. On his belt hung a piece of wood with a blade attached to its tip, which looked more like a kitchen knife than any sort of combat weapon. His clothes of choice looked like a beggar's worst nightmare, with the pants being completely torn and the tunic being 2 sizes too big, which was torn across the chest as well. The man opened his eyes and the druid could see the exhaustion radiating from the man. The bags under the eyes were evidence, but he saw the look of death in the man's eyes, a man who had seen enough death for a lifetime. The man hurried over to the druid's aid while not breaking eyesight of the dazed hellhound. "My name is Sapientus. I'm here to help. Don't fret, for I'm a healer in these lands," Sapientus exclaimed with extreme compassion and delicacy. He turned to Deus. The look that was given to the druid was one of extreme pity, sincerity, and sympathy, for the man seemed to be telling the truth. "They call me Deus," responded the druid. "You must escape before the demon turns from its confusion and strikes again," whispering urgently into the ear of Sapientus. "Do not worry, for I've put a spell on the hound. It will be in the state for a few more minutes. Besides, I am more worried about you. You are bleeding out," Sapientus exclaimed. Deus realized the extent of his injuries, for he had blocked the pain long enough and cringed at the burning sensation of the wounds that had been bestowed upon him. He suddenly felt very dizzy, and the lack of blood had finally caught up to him. "Hurry, you must. Get to safety. Run before it's too late," the druid managed to stutter before he blacked out. Sapientus could barely make out the warning before Deus passed out. He had very little experience with hellhounds, but had enough knowledge to know that the bite from the hellhound contained a toxin that would slowly drain its victim. Sapientus immediately uttered a healing enchantment across the druid, praying that it would stabilize Deus until Sapientus had the necessary herbs and medicine for the wounds. The priest's attention was quickly stolen by the hellhound as it began to recuperate from its daze. Sapientus was dumbfounded, for the spell should have kept the beast in the trance for a couple of more minutes. The hellhound regained balance and was on its feet in the span of a few seconds, still shaking the effects of the spell away from its coat of deathly black fur. Still bleeding from its back and underside, combined with the effects of the spell still lingering in the beast's mind, the devil dog knew that it was at a disadvantage and snarled at the man, spewing hot magma a few feet from its mouth as it turned into the opposite direction and bounded away over the tree line, scorching the leaves and foliage behind it. Sapientus' attention was quickly drawn back to Deus as soon as he was sure the hellhound had gone. The man was built like an ox, for every limb held a considerable amount of muscle underneath the skin. The man was imprinted with markings of a strange design that had the basis of a swirl, but at the ends contained a different pattern that Sapientus could not even begin to describe. On his left shoulder lay a bite wound from the hound that would have been burning had he not placed the enchantment on the man. He wore no shirt and was clothed with a belt and set of trousers. The belt hung around the waist, which contained pouches and other exotic foliage that the priest could not identify on a moment's notice. The trousers were torn from the fight and only reached above the calf. A considerable amount of flesh had been torn from Deus's right calf. He wore no shoes, which was a strange occurrence, for it was unheard of to travel barefooted, with the exception to the Druids of the West. However, it was impossible for this to be a Druid, for they had gone extinct many eons ago. The healer knew that he had to act fast if the man had any chance of survival. However, the dilemma arose: how he would carry Deus back to his chambers. Sapientus cursed and knew that there was only one solution. He gathered a few pieces of wood from the collapsed trees and arranged them in a certain pattern that would confuse anyone not of the art of magic. He sat next to the man and chanted a ritual, which went on for a little more than a minute. Immediately after the priest had finished the last syllable of the last word, a beam of light surrounded the two creatures, and they were instantly transported away from their former surroundings. Thank you for joining us for installment number 3 of Aloud with Mary, featuring Joshua Genz, A Different Perspective.